also want to give a note of appreciation to all the work that our team in the International Students and Scholars Office is doing. So, really appreciate their work. They're trying to navigate all the challenges which are being thrown our way by this administration and all the finer details of how it's going to impact us, but most importantly, what are the ways we are going to navigate to get to the next stage and make sure that our international students, our staff, our scholars stay protected and stay in compliance. So uh, we will dive into this soon, but I want to let all the students know that we as a university are out there in the forefront trying to lead our efforts to advocate for you, but also really express to everyone that you are an integral part of the university. You're not separate, you're not something on the side. You are the in the basic fabric of what makes us a world class university. And you are a central aspect of the University of Denver, especially today, which is a homecoming day. I mean, it couldn't be a better time to reinforce that. And this is, I speak on behalf of our senior administration that we are with you through all of these. So there are a lot of events, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of news items which cause anxiety, and this is a very difficult time on various aspects, including all that is going on with COVID cases rising around Denver. But uh, your support, your actions at least have mitigated COVID response, I think, keeping it managed at the University of Denver. And I thank all of you for your resilience and staying together in all of this. And we are with you. Um, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelist who will be talking today, and we will be all available also to answer questions in the end. And as Eleanor alluded to it, you will have a lot of questions that are specific and on your situation. Don't hesitate. Please, I encourage you to seek an advising appointment. Send us an email. We will get to them and we will work with you to help you, manage, navigate, and address all your questions. Um, so, Eleanor, if you could go to the next slide. Uh, so we are represented here, starting with Lynn, who's the director for the International Students and Scholars Office. I'm going to turn it over to all of them in a sec so that they can all say a few words. Laura, who's been working very diligently navigating all of these regulatory aspects. She is our primary designated school official and the assistant director here. We also have Katie, who's our senior international student advisor and also helps us with our sponsored programs. Um, Tom, who is the CVIS manager and also is helping us, navigate and teasing out these regulatory guidances that we are getting. And Eleanor and Jordan, both of them are still fairly new to DU, barely 6 months and 4 months or something. And we are very thankful that they are part of our team. So Eleanor is our international community and programming coordinator, and Jordan is our international student advisor, but both of them are here to support and help. Also on the call today, and here is our executive director, Casey Dinger. Uh, and we also have Susan, who is on in a different world. And if the I House was open, everyone would know Susan because she is right out there in the front. But she is also helping people in this remote situation with phone calls and their questions and things like that. I also want to give a shout out to Mandeep and to Ping, who have been amazing and student support to our office. Um, Not sure if I'm missing anyone, but I don't know how many people on the call know. I also want to, share a quick couple of words to say over the last few months, we've been working closely with Suraj and Mandeep. I thought I also saw a few others. Yeah, Dania uh, and others. I'm sorry if I'm not seeing you on this grid and missing you, but many students around the university, international students, have been coming together and working with us and working with the USG and GSG Romans here also to make sure that we as international student groups um, can come together, can get our questions addressed, and for all international students, there is a representative body out there. So thank you for everyone for all the efforts that you are making. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lynn. You all can go around, say a few words, and take it away from here.
Thank you so much, Utio. It's great to have the institutional support, the INTZ central support, and the support we know of all the students. As we're in this together, it has been a very, very challenging time as early as 2016, as many of you know. And when our group gets together, our professional association, it's just a question of managing the roller coaster. So we're trying to be as effective as we can and student facing as we can, while we also try and challenge some of the premises of the regulations that we're seeing on many, many different grounds. With that, Eleanor, if you could advance the next slide. So who we are is really, more what I'd like to say than just the immigration piece of it, although that has taken front and center for our lives almost as far back as 9/11. It's changed the tone of what we do, and it's been amazingly interesting to see how we've been able to pull in staff who are very adept at fitting all of these roles and trying to provide programming as well. So there we are, and what we do. In terms of advocacy, let's just say, I can reiterate what Utio said. We've been in the midst of trying to read very, very difficult regulations, not just this one on duration of status, but a few others. So DU institutional efforts, there's a pending duration of status letter going, which will address the concerns. And Laura will go into these greater details, but of course that proposed regulation was approximately 265 pages long. That is not something we can do independently without some collective wisdom from our colleagues. ISSS and INTZ sent a letter to you all October 15th, giving you a heads up. And of course, this information will be on our website, and we'll do a follow-up letter. Faculty and staff outreach, we have encouraged them to do a letter writing, and we'll talk about that again at the end and how you can participate. Colorado efforts, the Colorado Department of Higher Education under the Colorado Attorney General has also written a letter about this. Just so you know, our National Organization of Professionals, NAFSA, has just written a letter asking them to withdraw the rule because we already have so many oversight protections in place. The President's Alliance, of which our chancellor is a member, has written a letter. WES is also doing advocacy, and so on it goes. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Laura, who can better explain the regulatory process and hopefully ease some of your anxieties, because there's a lot that still has to play out. Thank you.
Laura, you're on mute.
Sorry, you'd think I'd be used to that after all these months of using Zoom all the time. So my name is Laura Buss. I'm the assistant director, and as Utio mentioned, I'm the primary designated school official, which means I am the primary person at the university recognized by the Department of Homeland Security for our F1 program. But I want to go through some of the acronyms and some of the agencies we'll be talking about today, because as many of you know, there are lots of fingers in this pie, as we say in English. First, we have the Department of Homeland Security, which issued this proposed rule. Within the Department of Homeland Security, we have Customs and Border Protection, CBP. These are the officers at the airports and at the land borders who inspect you and allow you to enter the United States. Then we have U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This is the processing branch of the Department of Homeland Security. It's where you send your applications for things like OPT. And as we'll learn a little farther along in the presentation, there'll be a new reason for you to file an application with them. There's also Immigration and Customs Enforcement. One of the sub-agencies of ICE is the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, which administers the F program and the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. I neglected to put this on the slide, but we also have the Department of State, which oversees embassies and consulates and visa issuance, and they also oversee the J Exchange Visitor Program. I already mentioned the primary designated school official. We have other staff at the university who are designated school officials. This means we can sign I-20s, we represent the university in administering the F program. We also have people on campus called responsible officers. We are designated by the US Department of State to administer the university's J program for J students and scholars. Let's talk a little bit now about the rulemaking process. The Department of Homeland Security published this rule, which, as Lynn mentioned, is more than 200 pages long, in the Federal Register on September 25th. The Federal Register is the official US government publication where things like this are written. There is a 30-day comment period, which expires on Monday, October 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is 10 p.m. Mountain time. After all the comments are submitted, the Department of Homeland Security reviews all those comments and they make revisions to the proposed rule. So what we talk about today is the proposed rule. The final might be different. The Department of Homeland Security then sends that revised rule to the Office of Management and Budget, where it undergoes another review, and then it is published again as a final rule in the Federal Register with an effective date. And I wish I could tell you how long all of this will take. It is not a quick process, but I really can't tell you if it will be a matter of a month or two or longer. We will talk about some things that we recommend you do later in the presentation, and we recommend that you do them soon because we cannot predict the timeline of this rulemaking process. So let's go into some of the main points of what is in the proposed rule, and colleagues will talk about pieces of this in more detail. Right now, F and J non-immigrants are admitted to the United States for duration of status. They do not get a specific expiration date. And this is what is on the I-94 at the time an F or J enters the United States. Duration of status allows F and J non-immigrants to stay in the United States for as long as they need to complete their academic program, whether that's a degree program or a research program. And the university estimates that length of time on the Form I-20 or DS 2019. And then if an F or J non-immigrant needs more time to complete an academic program or research or their employment in the United States, university staff, the people I talked about earlier who are designated school officials or responsible officers, can extend the I-20s or the DS 2019s as long as there are valid academic or medical reasons. So the main changes in the proposed rule will be to eliminate duration of status. And that means when F and J non-immigrants enter the United States, they will be given permission to stay until the program end date on the Form I-20 or DS 2019, plus a 30-day grace period. However, that period cannot exceed a 4-year maximum or a 2-year maximum. And I'll talk in a minute about who gets potentially 4 years or 2 years. And again, the grace period for F students and their dependents will be reduced from 60 days to 30 days. J exchange visitors already have a 30-day grace period. And then if an F or J non-immigrant needs more time to complete their academic program, they have to file an application with US Citizenship and Immigration Services using Form I-539. And if USCIS denies the request for an extension and the period of stay on Form I-94 has expired, then the F or J non-immigrant and their F2 and J2 dependents must leave the United States. Some people will be subject to a 2-year maximum. Those are people who were born in or citizens of countries that are on the US state sponsors of terrorism list. Right now, those countries are North Korea, Iran, Sudan, and Syria. People who are citizens of countries with more than a 10% overstay rate for students are also limited to a maximum 2-year period of stay. And we have listed the countries that currently have a 10% overstay rate on the screen here. Now, these things can change. The US government can, based on new criteria, new statistics, change the countries with overstay rates and also the countries on the terrorism list. If the student or exchange visitor is entering the US to go to a school that does not fully participate in E-Verify, they're also subject to the 2-year maximum. Luckily for us, DU does fully participate in the E-Verify program. The US government can also designate things that are in the national interest, which would limit someone to a 2-year entry. For example, someone who is coming to the United States to conduct research or study nuclear science. If someone is coming to the United States to study at an unaccredited school and they are an F1 student, they are limited to 2 years. However, DU is fully accredited, so again, this criteria doesn't apply. And students coming to the United States to study the English language in English language training programs are limited to 2 years. So this affects students who come to DU to study in the English Language Center. Everyone else will be admitted to the date indicated on their Form I-20 or their DS 2019, or 4 years, whichever is shorter. As I mentioned before, people who need more time than they are given on their Form I-94 must file Form I-539 with the Immigration Service. If they need more time to complete the current program, to change educational level, for example, from bachelor's to master's, or perhaps English language study to bachelor's, to transfer to another school, and to engage in optional practical training for F1 students or academic training for J1 students. This also applies to J scholars, more time to complete their research or their teaching. USCIS will grant the extension for the time to complete the academic program, the optional practical training or the academic training, but again, not to exceed 2 or 4 years. Filing Form I-539 must be done before the current expiration date on Form I-94. There are fees for this application, an application fee of $370 and a biometric fee of $85 for a total of $455. The biometric fee will be for applicants to go to an application support center where they will have their fingerprints taken. You will have to show proof of funding. USCIS could request an interview if they have additional questions for you. And any J2 or F2 dependents must file Form I-539 if they're filing on their own, or I-539A if they're filing with the F1 or J1, and it will also, they will be charged a biometric fee also. I'm handing it over now to my colleague, Jordan.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the transition from the current rule to the new rule and what happens if you are in the US or outside of the US and what happens when you travel with the rule. So for those of you who are currently in the United States and are in the US when the rule takes place, you will be transitioned over to the new rule. Your expiration of status date will become the I-20 or DS 2019 program end date, plus the 60 days for F visa holders or 30 days for J visa holders. But that cannot exceed the 4-year period either. So if your I-20 is currently for more than that time period, then it would only be, you would only get until the 4-year period. If you're traveling and re-entering after the rule takes effect, you'll become subject to the fixed date framework. So CBP will assign you an expiration of status date when you enter the country. For those of you who are applying for OPT and STEM OPT, F1 non-immigrants with pending applications will be allowed to stay in the US while the application is pending, and they won't have to file the extension or the new OPT. They'll just stay with the OPT that they had already sent in the application for. If USCIS approves your OPT, then you can stay in the US until the end date on their OPT EAD plus 60 days, which is what we currently have. If USCIS denies the OPT, then the student would need to that you can stay in the US until the end of the grace period. But if the grace period has already passed, then you have to leave the US. And now a little bit about traveling while your applications are pending. Travel while you have an extension. If you're traveling while you have an extension of stay application pending, but you return before the program end date, this is what will happen. So that the F or J non-immigrant enters the US with their I-20 DS 2019 that has their current program end date. CBP will admit them until the current program end date plus a 30-day grace period, which can't exceed that 2 or 4 year limit. USCIS will not cancel the extension of status application. They'll continue to process it if you come back in before the current program end date. And then when and if the pending extension of status is approved, that will determine the new expiration of status for you. If you travel while your extension of status is pending and you return on an extension I-20 or DS 2019 with that new program end date, then CBP will likely determine expiration of status based on the new extension I-20 or DS 2019. CBP has a little bit of discretion in what they decide, so their actual decision could be slightly different, but we believe that they will choose based on the extension I-20 or DS 2019. And so if they do grant you a longer extension of stay, then USCIS will cancel the application that you had with them and it'll go off of the CBP decision. If you enter after it's been approved, most likely CBP will also refer to that extension I-20 or DS 2019. And then what if you're traveling while you have extension of status, OPT, or J2 work authorization pending? Because CBP doesn't make decisions about employment authorization, USCIS will continue processing those applications even if you leave the country. The application will be approved by USCIS, then they will not issue an EAD with an expiration date that exceeds that fixed date of admission provided by CBP, which is why you would need to send in that extension of status as well as the OPT application. For example, if you're wanting to do post-completion OPT, you file the extension of status and the OPT application simultaneously. If you depart the US before the application is processed, USCIS will not cancel the OPT application in that case.
And I believe our next slide here is back to Lynn for some of the academic restrictions.
Okay, so what generally is happening here is that, as Laura mentioned, there's a 24-month aggregate limit. So we often have students who go from a master's sometimes back to an English language program for whatever reasons. In the aggregate, it has to be a total of 24 months of English language and no more. We do see a few exceptions and things like that. Lifetime limit on extension of stay to pursue new F programs at the same educational level. So you can see that it's 2 times while in F1 status for a total of 3 programs at the same level. But there's a lifetime limit. Now, reverse matriculation, it's interesting. If you were to switch between master's and a certificate, you'd only have a one-time chance to do that. So you cannot go back more than 1 level. And we have to be sure, I think, under these circumstances, still yet to be determined, if people are adding second majors, dual degrees, the best thing is to try and get that all done up front. So unaccredited post-secondary schools, apparently of which there are few, are only given a 2-year period of admission. And certain fields, which are national interest fields like nuclear science, looks like, by my reading, our reading, that is also limited to 2 years with then extensions needed each time. Given the nature of that major, which is usually at the PhD level, this is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. And this is one of the things that has been addressed in the comments, is how unrealistic and devoid of common sense some of these rules are. So standards for USCIS, which currently exist, are compelling academic reasons, a documented illness or medical condition, or exceptional circumstances. If we go to the next slide, the compelling,
Yes.
yes? Katie, you want to take that on?
Yeah,
okay.
This is my section.
Okay.
So, so just a quick overview of the current F1 extension of stay standards. This is what you are currently under right now as an F1 student. You must establish to the DSO delay is caused by one of the following: a compelling academic or medical reason, such as a change of major or research topic, unexpected research problem, or a documented illness. Also, delays caused by academic probation or suspension are not acceptable reasons for program extensions. So this is what currently, if you were to come to us in ISSS and explaining that you need a program extension, that you need more time, we would be asking you to provide compelling academic or medical reasons, but we would not be able to accept delays. And so it's the university via us, the DSOs, the designated school officials in ISSS, that makes the decision to extend a student's immigration document in consultation with the academic department or when your illness is documented. And just so you all are aware, this information is already available to the Department of Homeland Security upon request. So all the information that you and your academic department or a medical doctor are providing to us for this extension of stay, that documentation that we have, we do provide that to DHS upon request, and that is currently already the policy. So now I'll go on to the next, what's proposed and what the difference is. So in the new rule, the student must establish to the satisfaction of USCIS that the delay is caused by a compelling academic reason or a documented illness or medical condition or circumstances beyond the student's control. Under the compelling academic reasons, they explicitly state that there are a few reasons. Some of them are the inability to take the required classes in your major due to over-enrollment, changes of major or research topics, or unexpected research problems. The documented illness or medical condition is fairly similar to what already exists. The circumstances beyond your control, that would include a natural disaster, national health crisis such as current pandemic, or the closure of an institution. And it's very important to note that passing a class or not is something that is within the student's control, and they have explicitly stated that. So you cannot use passing a class or not passing a class as a reason. So really the bottom line here in what these standards are for extension of stay is that USCIS, the government, will make the decision and not the university. I think the next slide we can go on. Okay, so now we will come to some general points about optional practical training. I know there have been a lot of comments asking about this. So students applying for OPT and STEM OPT will also have to file an application to extend their stay in the US. So the OPT application is the I-765 and the extension of stay application is the I-539. Those must be applied for at the same time. For OPT, you would not be able to begin any work until both the OPT application and the extension application are approved by USCIS and your employment authorization document, your EAD card, is received. For the STEM extension, you may still work up to 180 days beyond the expiration of your OPT EAD card, while the STEM extension and extension of stay application are pending. So the STEM rule stays the same as it is now, which is you may still work up to 180 days beyond the expiration, but as long as you have filed both the STEM work authorization extension and the extension of stay application. So the OPT filing windows in this proposed rule are, they have changed those. Mm-hmm. You may file up to 120 days prior to program end date. That is currently 90 days. So currently you can apply only up to 90 days. In the proposed rule, you would be able to file up to 120 days. But you can file no later than 30 days after your program end date in the new rule, which right now it allows you to file up to 60 days after. And so the cost here, to reiterate, it will be more expensive to do these things. The extension of status application fee is going to be $455. And then the OPT application fee is $410, bringing that to a total of $865 for both the OPT application and then later the STEM OPT extension. Next slide. There are a few other employment changes in addition to OPT. So for F1 students, on-campus employment and economic hardship, you may continue working in both of those areas while the extension of application or the extension of status application is pending, but only for 180 days beyond the program end date. And you must apply for an extension before the I-94 expiration date in order to continue working. For curricular practical training, which is for F1 students, you may not continue CPT while an extension of status application is pending with USCIS. You must wait until USCIS approves the extension of stay. And for J1 exchange visitors, you may continue working for up to 240 days if that is what is allowed in your category beyond the program end date, while a timely filed extension of stay application is pending with USCIS. For a J2 dependent work authorization, those applicants would have to wait until USCIS approves both the extension of stay application and the work authorization application. Now I think I turn it over to Tom.
All right, so all of you guys just sort of take a quick breath. You may want to get up and stretch for just a second. This is a lot of information. All of us on staff have had several weeks to try and begin digesting this. So we do not expect you to understand all of this there. We also just want to reiterate at this point, this is all theoretical. We are all hoping and praying this does not ever go into effect, but we don't have crystal balls. We can't do that. So what I want to talk about is some practical steps. What can we do now, today, related to this, whether it goes into effect or not? So just these real practical steps are things that we would recommend really students do no matter what happens, but it's just a good precaution here. So because the I-94 arrival record will become more important in many ways than the I-20 or DS 2019 end date, it's best to go ahead and see now, is that information accurate in the CBP system there? And so as you can see, just review that information for accuracy. There's that link there, the cbp.gov/I-94. If you go there, it'll say something like, get your I-94 or something like that. That's going to be one of the first steps there, and just check and see if it's correct. If it's not correct there, then ISSS does have information on how to get that fixed. For most students, it would require going to the CBP office at the Denver airport. It's not uncommon for a student to have it done now. It's generally a very fast process. You know, CBP offices are humans, so they may have let you enter as a J1 instead of an F1, or a tourist instead of a J1, something like that. So we want you to get that information corrected as soon as possible. Just know, if your last date of entry is more than 5 years in the past, that information is not currently available. And we're not aware of any real way to do it. There's technically a form you can file for several $100s, and then you can wait for DHS to respond. Another thing, they do mention it in the rules, is something related to address changes. So it shows that they are looking at that. Immigration rules right now do say that students need to update their address, which they can do through the school information system through Pioneer Web, but that address really needs to be updated within 10 days of changing that address. So in Pioneer Web, update the mailing address is what it's called. Right now with COVID-19 and some of these things, many of you or some of you might be outside the United States studying remote. That is one of the nice things that CBP and DHS has done for students, is allowing your F1 records to remain active, but they still want some US address listed in their system. So it might be the address of your apartment before you left the US, or if you have sort of an address where your mail is sent right now, you could use that. Also, if you are on OPT, certainly update your employment information through the SEVP portal. If you're on STEM OPT, just remember you have those serve on the 6-month, 12-month, 18-month, and 24-month anniversary of when your STEM OPT started. There are some reports that you need to send to us as well. Extension of stay, just because if this rule does go into effect, it will become something that we can only recommend instead of approve like we do now. And because it will become an expensive process, if you don't believe you can finish your program by the end date, your current program, this is not like if you do a change of level or transfer to another school, but your current program, if you don't feel you can finish that by the date on the end of your I-20 or DS 2019, work with ISSS to go ahead and do an extension now. We will be reviewing sort of our information for students and sending out more detailed information on how to do that process in the near future. And just for that last step, keep copies of just your immigration documents and supporting evidence. So let's say you had requested a medical lesson full-time related to an injury, just keep that medical documentation just in case they were to ever ask for it in the future there. As far as I can tell, digital copies would be good. Copies of past I-20s or DS 2019 is always good to keep that as well. So I will pass it on, I believe, to Lynn to sort of talk about what you can do related specifically to this proposal.
Thanks, Tom. So really what we're saying here is make sure you know when your I-20 or DS 2019 is expiring, what your I-94 looks like, and let's be proactive about this. We can go ahead and actually do some extensions. So we'd like to get that done as early as possible. I think Danya had a good point. The rule creates a lot of work and cost, yes, but this, and I'm going to be perfectly frank, is designed to make it difficult for all of us concerned. So having said that, we really need to advocate, and based on the slide, what you can do. So the President's Alliance, of which Chancellor Hefner is a member, has a template message for commenting as private citizens, or let me put it this way, as temporary residents to the United States, but as welcomed visitors, you have a voice if you would like to make a comment through maybe an organization or an association. There are fact sheets. There's a lot of information. If nothing else, just inform yourself of what is possible out there and how much work is actually being done on the behalf of international students. There are a ton of lawyers out there that are looking at all of this. So Penn State actually has an excellent one-page or two-page document. Again, our professional association, NAFSA, has a really good dedicated site. You can bookmark it and just keep up to date on this, as we are too. And then there is a actual webinar that you can look at that's linked at the bottom on number 3. Again, we'll be migrating these sites to our website for you to have as a reference. Eleanor, I think we've got the last one more slide on action you can take, which is that use these talking points when you're talking with each other, when you're talking to your faculty. Make sure that they understand that international students are a huge boon to all of our research, all of our efforts, our employment picture, the number of companies that have been started by entrepreneurs of international origin, first gen, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there are ways to become self-aware about this. And again, we'll be keeping you informed as we learn. I think personalizing anything you send makes a huge difference. Again, the comment period and the comments are available. They're publicly available. Please look at them, recognize that there's a lot of support for you, and we're partners in this together. So I just want to say that there's one more slide that Eleanor can finish up on, but thank you so much for, being in there with us and recognizing that many of your personal questions can be answered by advisors. Eleanor?
Thanks so much. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming to this town hall. I know it was a lot of information, but like everyone has reiterated that our advisors are here to help you and to answer your questions. So please, if you go to du.edu/ISSS/advising, there is a way to click in and schedule a virtual advising appointment there. Or if you have any questions, you can email isss@du.edu as well. And we'll triage your questions from there and make sure we're getting answers for you guys. So if anyone else would like to say any parting words of encouragement and support, let me know. But like I said before, ISSS is here for all of our international students. You are welcome here, and we are going to do everything we can to fight this. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
I want to finish this by thanking everyone for joining, especially to our ISSS staff for taking the time going through. It's a lot of work. Sarah, thank you for your comments and for passing along the info also to faculty. I am working as we speak with the senior administration, and we will be formally also from the university putting in our comments, detailed data comments on why all this is important, how it impacts us. we are doing everything. We are, joining lawsuits, we are filing as plaintiffs. Lot of action that has already happened at the university in the last few months is absolutely things that we have not done in the past, and I'm extremely thankful to the administration for the support they have been showing through this. Again, I want to, uh, on behalf of the administration and to all of you, want to reiterate that you are part of DU. You are important. We are here with you, um, and we will work with you. We will work with our professional organizations, with the university and everyone to make sure that we protect all your interests. And but the most important thing, if there's one takeaway from today that you should take, is advocacy will happen, should happen, and you should do it. At the same time, let us first make sure that we are getting and staying compliant. So right now, the most important thing for you to is go pay attention, make sure what is the end date on your I-94. Let's make sure that all the documents are proper, everything is okay, and that you work with the ISSS office so that we keep you absolutely compliant. And then on the side, in addition, we will continue all the other efforts to challenge the rulemaking and all those kind of things. But I want to be with you on this, that we stay sure-footed with the things that we can do, rather than get speculative of what can happen with administration changes or not. So first and most importantly, go back. We will have the recording available. The info on the slides will be available. You can access all the information. Go make sure all your information is right. If you're moving, you've changed your address, all those things, and that you're completely, compliant with existing processes which are there. So that's my uh, few words to you all. Again, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of the university, and we highly, highly appreciate you.
All right, so it looks like we're ending a few minutes early here, so that's always nice. So yeah, again, any questions, please reach out to our office, and we are here for you. So everyone have a great weekend.